We are going to look at Exodus tonight, just a little bit in this section between chapter 7 and 12. We may look at just a few verses here and there, but get the big picture a bit tonight. I've been enjoying the study on Sundays, and invariably on a Sunday afternoon I think, oh man, there's so much more we could have dug into in that particular passage, whatever our topic was for the day, and just realized, wow, there's just so much here. So with our opportunity of all of us being together tonight, I wanted to take a little time in this section and draw out one of these kind of big ideas that I think is really helpful. We've been seeing along the way that God is demonstrating his faithfulness to his people, showing himself to be a good father who is leading his people along in his provisions. And we're seeing all the different details that keep highlighting God's faithfulness, God's kindness, God's goodness to his people. And one of the things that's been on my mind, I've mentioned it a few times in the sermon series, but one of the things that's been on my mind is a tendency that we have naturally. We all have this tendency, naturally speaking, and it's a bit misguided and misleading, but we have a tendency to interact with God in a way that's almost like superstitious, more like superstitious than really relating to God as he is. And so I think last Sunday, and this term has come up a number of times, of like superstitianity, like just kind of being aware of this temptation to treat Christianity like any other superstition, whereby we're just trying to secure favorable outcomes for ourselves. We're just trying to manage life. We're trying to get things to go a certain way, and we have expectations and desires, and sometimes we can engage in the relationship, even with our good Heavenly Father, as if we know better, as if it should go the way we want it to go. And so it can become almost like a form of superstition. So I want us just to be aware of that tendency and temptation that we all have. Hopefully God will help us maybe to identify it a little bit more after tonight. Hopefully we'll be a little bit more sensitive to it. And the reason for that's a beneficial thing is, one, this is always grounded in just the truth of who God is and how he relates to us. Like, we want to operate and live according to truth. That's what it means to walk in the light. So we want to walk in the light, okay? And then secondly, we want to learn of him. Throughout Exodus, over and over, it emphasizes God's, as part of his faithfulness and commitment to his people, he is causing them to know him. He uses that word a lot. He's causing his people to know him, to be in relationship with him, to understand him, to trust in him. And that's what it really means to be led to freedom. So obviously we think of freedom in terms of, well, they're in Egyptian bondage and they want to get out of that, and that's true on a physical level. But more importantly, they need the freedom of seeing God for who he is, being very familiar with the heart of God and learning to trust him. And that's what he's guiding them through all the ups and downs and twists and turns. That's why he's guiding them that way, to teach them of himself. I have on the board here, this is you. Okay, and this is God. And I have some examples of the types of things in life that we tend to think about, and it's normal and natural, and I want to be really clear, not wrong to think about these aspects of our lives. Everything from church involvement, our personal finances, relationships with other people, that's the pinheads in your life, that's the other people. Our health, or the health of people close to us, our automobiles or other assets or things that we're responsible for and are managing. And then I've got a couple people here. We also have this part of life, do we not, where on a daily basis we have the people that we are in conflict with, whether real or just in our minds. And so this represents just the person who's kind of creating problems for us. So there's a little scowl there, if you can't see that. And then we have the people who we like a whole lot better, that are like affirming of us and supportive. These are the people we feel better about. So we have those folks in our lives, and we have warm, fuzzy feelings that go along with that. Now, give me some terms. I want to interact a little bit tonight, all right? So let's say one of these areas, things are going really well. Let's say your personal finances. Maybe you've had a season where, okay, finally we're out of debt, or we're feeling like we've got some savings, or whatever. It's going well. How do we tend to feel when our finances are going fairly well? What does that tend to feel like? Okay, less stressed. Go ahead, Lisa. Rest, did you say? Relaxed. Okay, relaxed, secure, less stressed. And then, okay, let's flip that around. So let's say their finances are really bad and we've been hit with a bunch of bills, medical bills or something else. Now what do we tend to feel? Fear, more stressed, right, Robert? We'll flip yours around. Stressed, insecure. Yeah, exactly. Same thing with health. I mean, as a pastor, there's a lot of updates. And in the church, we're constantly sharing prayer requests and things. We just know people are going through all sorts of things. And sometimes you get the text message, hey, the test came out this way. The results came back negative, which, remember, is a positive in the medical world. So the test came back negative. Hey, that's great. That's a relief. Thank God for that. And then other times you hear the bad news. Oh, this is going to be difficult. I have to have a procedure or something more serious than that. And there's all sorts of twists and turns. And when the results in that area are unfavorable and things are not looking good, then we tend to feel a certain way, don't we? It induces fear. It induces, again, the sense of insecurity. And on the flip side, when we get a good report from our doctor, it's a relief, right? Like I'm 50 now, and so I hate going to the doctor, but every once in a while I actually succumb to my wife's urging to go, and I go. And when I get the good, all clear report, that's always a good thing, right? So there's a feeling that goes along with that, and that's just part of life as we navigate through all these details. Well, just as there were details in the lives of the ancient Israelites, there are details in our lives as well, and things that are important to us, and they are constantly familiarizing us with our limitations, of our resources, of our relationships, of our surroundings. And when things are going well, when we are winning, so to speak, it has a certain feeling to it. When things are not going well, when we're losing, that has a certain feel to it. But God is up to something in all of it, all right? And by the end tonight, we will have addressed some of that and what he's up to, some of what he's up to in that. And it's similar to what he was up to with his people in the book of Exodus. Let's do this just to get our minds back in Exodus, in this section that we've been in for a few weeks in the sermons, between chapters 7 and 12. We have the 10 plagues, okay? Now, let's, for fun, let's see if you guys can name some of the plagues. We did this with the young adults, and I was amazed. We got all 10 of them, just from memory. So no pressure, but we pulled it off with the young adults. And if you're a young adult and you're in here for that night, you have to keep quiet right now. So let's see how we do. All right, so with the 10 plagues, and I'll try to get them in order as you give them to me, but which plagues do you remember? Okay, flies is one. That's the fourth plague. What else? Locusts. That is the 8th plague. Yes. Nile turned to blood. Yeah, the frogs. That's the second one. I always picture just piles of dead frogs and how just horribly offensive that is. It's probably not as bad as some of the other ones, arguably, but to me it's really bad for some reason. What else? Darkness. I heard darkness. That's 9. And then who said another one? Was that Russ? Was that you? Oh, Don? The death of the firstborn. So that's the Passover. So let's just say, yeah, that's the one we just covered. All right, are we slowing down? How are we doing? We got a couple more. Boils, I hear boils. Yeah, boils, that's 6. And then I heard hail, I think, right? I heard somebody say hail. And 7. All right, 2 more. Gnats. Good job. And one last one. For those who didn't hear, our resident Yankees fan just said Red Sox fans. Well, the Red Sox are dying a slow death, if you haven't heard. They had a little good streak, but they're not doing so well the last couple days. All right, let's see. One more. Anyone remember? Yes, livestock dying. Yep, animals dying. Okay. Now, for the sake of time, I'm going to just fast forward this. But if I asked you, what do they all have in common? They're plagues. They're not good. They're negative. They're hard. And over and over again, you have this term repeated throughout, where they're dealing with death. All different forms of death. Even something like the boils. Okay, it's like, well, did it kill them? Didn't kill them, but I mean, it's the dying of skin cells and all the other things that go along. I mean, this is all horrendous. This is all deadly stuff. And over again, you have Pharaoh and the others complaining about the death that is being unleashed on them, the devastation of it all. It's death. Turn to Exodus 12 for a moment. So toward the end, in the context of the 10th plague, with all this happening, and the Egyptians are reeling, and they're stunned from all this devastation. Look what God says he was up to. And he's referring to the Passover, the last plague, but I think it applies to all of them. That's fair to say, and I'll tell you a little bit more about why that's the case in a moment. But Exodus 12, verses 12 through 13, God says, "For I will go through the land of Egypt on that night, and I will strike down all the firstborn in the land of Egypt, both man and beast, and against all the gods of Egypt I will execute judgments. I am the Lord." All right, stop there. God says he is executing judgment against all the false gods of the Egyptians. You catch that? That's what he's up to. And many scholars and commentators have pointed out that every one of these plagues, if you look at the details, every one of them is correlated with one of the Egyptian gods. And these areas that they were hit hard at have to do with their economy, their agricultural prosperity, their just physical health. Something like darkness, it's not explicit, but if you think about if darkness goes on for a while, things die. They need sunlight. All this has to do with God exposing the fact that there is no life in their gods. There's only death. God limited the amount of devastation. Not everything and everyone died, but boy, it got the message across, didn't it? It sure did. So not everything and everyone died, but it got their attention. And this is interesting too. What God did with all these plagues really is just fast forward things such that they met their fate earlier, because all of these things would eventually die, right? So all these creatures and all the people and everything else, here we are thousands of years later, it's all long gone. So what God did was he fast forwarded the process so that they would be stunned and confronted with death, surrounded by it. Like they could not escape it, they couldn't ignore it. He was showing them the things that you're putting your trust in, that you're deriving your sense of security from, there's no life in them. That's what he was communicating to not only the Egyptians, but even to his own people who were living there for centuries at that point, and who were also benefiting from prosperity in Egypt up until they became slaves of Pharaoh, especially. But God was making it very clear that there was no real hope in what previously they had put their hope in. This is interesting, and one of my friends helped turn me on to this recently as we were talking and just comparing notes about his study of Ephesians, and I'm studying Exodus, and we were talking about in the first century in Rome. That's why I have this little Latin phrase up on the board here, and I don't remember if I've mentioned this before or not, but this is what it means. Give in order to get. And this is a phrase that's often used with regard to the polytheism of the first century of the Romans and how they interacted with their gods. This was the nature of the relationship. People did what they did. They made vows. They had rituals, offerings, sacrifices, celebrations, all sorts of things they did for the deities, for the gods. And this describes why they did it. It was a negotiation. It was bargaining. It was, I'll do my part, and what's the God's part? Well, then you bless me. My crops, my health, my success in warfare and battle, things like beauty. I mean, all these areas of life, this is how they operated with their gods. And I would say that it's not only an ancient person problem, nor is it only an out there problem. We all have ways of doing this. In fact, God, many, many times in Scripture, explicitly references it, but one is in Isaiah where he says to his people, hey, you bring sacrifices, you're going through the motions, you honor me with your lips, but your hearts are far from me. It's all just a way of like shrinking God down so that we can get what we think we need to get. So we do the things, and we don't even realize it, but we have certain expectations that go along with the things that we do. What God is up to, remember we said, He wants us to know Him. He's teaching us to know Him, that we might know Him. We admitted earlier, we have all these areas of our lives, and they're not wrong. It's just normal and natural to have gifts of common grace and relationships and things that matter to us, from church to finances to health to friendships to automobiles and whatever. And there's all different levels of that we experience. But in it all, if we can be aware of, we do have this tendency. If we can say, God, and I would just maybe encourage you to consider, even in your own prayer life, God, where is it that maybe I'm attempting to bargain with you, and I'm really just in this relationship, I'm not so much interested in knowing you for who you are and delighting in that relationship, but I'm just trying to get what I need here. Where do I think that I need something for my own sense of security or satisfaction? And we all do. And just as in the Exodus story, God is the one in charge of exposing that. He did radical things, very real things to expose that. He's the one who addresses that. When we think about it, we can trust, okay, and we can even ask in that prayer, God, okay, where are you addressing that? Where are you revealing to me my false gods? Where am I experiencing those negative emotions or frustrations or conflict with other people, or, the dark, heavy, negative? Where is that? He's up to things. He's orchestrating things. As we've talked about before, we have areas where it's fine. It's not wrong, like, for example, to have finances. But what invariably happens is that in this area that's good, that we need, this, as we've talked about before and illustrated it this way, we just have this greed that just weaves itself around, doesn't it? So it's like we need this for, getting things done and taking care of the household and providing for the needs of our family or whatever. But there's also like this just incessant desire for more, and comparisons and anxiety and being up at night worrying about it. And there's that. And it's the same in other areas too. It's something as seemingly innocent as church involvement that matters to us and we want to be part of and we want to invest in and we want to contribute to. But man, we just can't deny that, boy, there's things about it that if it could just be this way, then I'd be satisfied. And then tend to be a lot of criticisms with that and judgments and the externalization of problems, like they're just out there. Well, as we've said throughout the Exodus study, what God is up to is He's showing us the problems in here. It's very natural to be fixated on the problems out there. That is our instinct. And then going along with that instinct is then God becomes a means by which to manage that stuff out there and protect ourselves and God says, hey, your real problem is right in here. And the solution and freedom is that. I talk about this with my girls are sitting right up front right now. I'm not going to put you on the spot. I'm going to mention you, but I'm not going to ask you to say anything, so that's good. We talk about a lot how all these areas of life, they're revealing what we really value, what we really think we need. And it's not up to us to fix it, to resolve it, but to know God's up to something in this. Where is it revealing my heart issues? Even when it comes to, like, this is the easiest one to externalize, is like this person. What about that person? And you're in this battle, and we just want to make it about their sin. But what about this? What about that? And how we might be contributing to it, we might be inviting it, we might be, or we might not be. But either way, it's showing something about what we believe to be true about God. Like, is he good or not? Is God up to good in all these areas of life? What I have, what I don't have? I mean, that's the struggle, and that's what we talk about. That's the struggle to believe. That's so ordinary for us. We've said that the meaning of the term, the name Exodus, is the way out. And over we keep talking about how Jesus is the way out. The ancient Israelites didn't fully understand that. They didn't fully grasp that. For them, it was very real. It was right in their face. It was just literally like, are we going to survive this or not? We're going to end up slaves at the end of this? Or are we going to be free? I mean, it was all very concrete, very physical. As you get to the New Testament, and the Bible makes it very clear, there's something deeper that God's always been up to. He's showing us the truth about ourselves and the truth about himself. He's causing us to know him. He's causing us to know what it means when Jesus says in John 14, I am the way, the truth, and the life. There's no way to the Father but through me. Another way of saying that would be to say, there's no way to know the Father but through me. There is no relationship with God but through Jesus. Jesus is the most clear manifestation, is he not, of God? And just as God unleashes all these deadly plagues, and then we get little things in life, little losses, little omens of death in our lives, like God is orchestrating all that, and over and over and over again, he is reminding us where our hope is really found. Over and over and over again, he's reminding us where our security is found, where our joy is found. His provisions for us, the hope that we have beyond this place. Just to know that God is that committed to us, that he's the great physician, that he knows what our souls need better than we do, that he's up to good as a faithful God. There's some of you have probably seen this old sitcom, The Office, and there's an episode in which one of the main characters who says a lot of silly, dumb things, but they're funny. And one of them, he says at one point, he says, I'm not superstitious, but I am a little stitious. Well, as Christians, we're not superstitious, but we're a little stitious, and we're probably more than just a little stitious. We have this going on in our relationship with God, I would say oftentimes too. There's an opportunity here to consider that. To ask the question, God, have I treated you that way? Or maybe more clearly, where have I treated you that way? God, what are you teaching me? What is it that you're causing me to understand better about myself, about you? Where am I entangled with something that otherwise is natural, good, it's okay, but yet for me it's become plaguing, enslaving. It's death, and it's bearing the fruits of death, which would be the frustration, the anger, the anxiety, the tossing and turning at night, the ongoing conflict with people, whatever it is. Like, where is that stuff? I know it's somewhere, because you're human. I don't have to know the particulars. I know it is. This is part of life in this world as God is leading you along. So, he exposes the heart. Let's turn to Philippians 4 for a moment. Apostle Paul understood these things. Philippians chapter 4, familiar passage. Paul in prison at the time. Guy had been through a lot. God gave him unique understanding and revelation and the ability and the calling to preach and teach and write these letters. And he understood something about contentment. So look at Philippians 4, verses 10 through 13. It says, "But I rejoiced in the Lord greatly, that now at last you have revived your concern for me. Indeed, you were concerned before, but you lacked opportunity. Not that I speak from want, for I have learned to be content in whatever circumstances I am. I know how to get along with humble means. I also know how to live in prosperity. In any and every circumstance, I have learned the secret of being filled, going hungry, having abundance, suffering need. I can do all things through him who strengthens me." There's that well-known verse 13, so often taken out of context. But here, in its context, has to do with Paul saying, hey, there's times when I've had a lot. There's times when he's had a lot in these areas. It's not wrong to have a lot in these areas. And there's times where he says, I've had a little in these areas. And he's saying, not, I'm always content. All the time, I'm perfectly content from now on. He's not saying that, because the same guy wrote Romans 7 and 1st and 2nd Timothy, where he admits his own sin. He's not saying that, but he's saying, I know where contentment is found. At the deepest level, I understand where contentment comes from. It comes through Christ, which is another way of saying, it's another way that Paul says it elsewhere. He's like, I know where life is found. I have life now. Did Paul get entangled at times? Absolutely. Did he struggle? Absolutely. We see many examples of that. Even the conflict he was in. Sometimes you can see sort of the revealing of attitudes that he has. Like, he struggled quite a bit, but fundamentally deep down in all that God had revealed to him, he knew Jesus Christ was his life. For me to live is Christ and to die is gain, he said, right? He said, Christ is life. Because Christ is our way back to God. Christ is how we believe that God is always for us, and always good, and always wise, and always generous, and always sacrificial, and always has our best interest at heart. When he gives us abundance, when he takes things away and there's lack. He's showing us that behind. See, what we do is we make these things ultimate, right? It's like we look at good in our life in this area, and it's like these things are ultimate, and God's just opening our eyes to see, hey, behind all that stuff, who's the one who gave it all to you? What did Job say? He gives and he takes away. But blessed be the name of the Lord. He's our life, isn't he? It's simple. It's basic. And if you're aware of yourself, you have to admit, yeah, wow, that's a struggle every day to believe that. And such temptations to disbelieve that. And so what does God do? He leads his people along. He shows his faithfulness. He tampers with things. He disrupts things. He allows you to wrestle with people that don't like you, that you don't like. He surrounds you with people that affirm you and support you. He does all the things that you might see, that from him, through him, and to him are all things. To him belongs the glory. He's your life, he's my life. And when we expire, whenever that is, could be a long way off, could be real soon, whenever it is, we get to go home. And all this is going to be gone. but we will be in relationship with our God, and no more blinders. No more barriers of lies and selfishness and greed and resentment and hostility and all the other stuff. We just get to be with him and to know him and to be known by him forever. That's life. All right, let's pray together. Lord, thank you for our time thinking about this concept from Exodus. Thank you for being so gracious to us that even though we turn so often to created things, we make them ultimate. We suffer as a result of that, burdens and distress of all kinds. Even though that is our way of running from you, denying you, minimizing you, you are so faithful. Thank you that we can look at the pages of Exodus and see what you did in the lives of your people way back then. And we can be confident that you are at work in our lives today as well. You are at times blessing us with abundance, and at times you are causing us to experience lack. You give health and you take it away. Sometimes you give financial blessing and sometimes you take it away. Many friends, a few friends, no friends, all a result of what you're up to teach us about yourself. And so often we are just kicking and screaming and complaining and judging and condemning. And you're just showing us what's true. So help us to know you, to see you as you are. Help us to experience the life of your Spirit. Eyes that see Jesus and his value, that see through Christ, from Christ to your very heart, the manifestation of your love for us through Jesus. All that he's done. Our substitute in death, our gift of life. Help us to believe. Thank you for the reminder tonight. Thank you for each one that you've brought and those watching online. And pray that we would continue to celebrate this good news together with hearts set free. And it is for Jesus' sake, because of him, and in his name, amen.